The morning sun rose over New like it had for the past 20 years. Governor Lee stood on her balcony and watched the golden light spread across the wheat fields. The crops were ready for harvest. It would be the best yield they had ever seen. She smiled and sipped her coffee. 20 years ago, this planet had been nothing but rocks and dust. Now it was home to 15,000 people. They had built schools, farms, and parks. Children played in the streets. Families gathered for dinner. It was peaceful. It was safe. Or so they thought. Walked to her office and checked the morning reports. Everything looked normal. The orbital station reported clear skies. No ships in the area. The transport bringing supplies from Earth would arrive next month. She signed off on the harvest schedule and prepared for her meeting with the farmers. Across town, 12-year-old ran through the streets toward school. His backpack bounced on his shoulders. He was late again. His mother would be angry, but the sunrise had been too beautiful to miss. He loved watching the light hit the mountains. He waved at Mister, who was opening his bakery. The smell of fresh bread filled the air. Stomach growled. Maybe he could stop for a pastry after school. At the school, teacher was setting up her classroom. She wrote the day's lesson on the board. Today they would learn about Earth's history. The children loved hearing stories about the home planet most of them had never seen. Everything was normal. Everything was perfect. Then the sky caught fire. The first explosion came without warning. The orbital station simply vanished in a ball of light. The shockwave rattled windows across the colony. People stopped and looked up. What was that? Ran to her window. Her heart pounded. She grabbed her communicator. Orbital station come in. Station respond. Nothing but static. Then she saw them. 5 massive ships dropping from the clouds. They were dark and angular, covered in weapons. They looked like insects, all sharp edges and cruel lines. They were not human ships. The ships opened fire. Energy beams cut through the communication tower. It exploded in a shower of sparks. Another beam hit the power station. The lights across the colony flickered and died. More beams lanced down, striking buildings at random. Fire and smoke rose into the sky. People started screaming. Grabbed the emergency transmitter. It was old technology, a backup system that nobody thought they would ever need. Her hands shook as she activated it. This is New Colony. We are under attack. Unknown hostile forces. They destroyed our orbital station. They're attacking civilians. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help. We have no weapons. We have no defenses. They're killing us. Please help. She sent the message on repeat and ran out of her office. Outside, chaos filled the streets. People ran in every direction. Parents clutched their children. The alien ships hovered overhead like dark angels of death. Small craft began dropping from the larger ships. They landed in the streets and parks. Hatches opened. Creatures emerged. They stood on 2 legs like humans, but there the similarity ended. They were tall, covered in dark scales. Their eyes were yellow and cold. They carried weapons that hummed with power. They moved with the confidence of predators who knew their prey could not fight back. The creatures were. They had come from the far side of the galaxy, conquering world after world. They believed in one simple rule: the strong survive, the weak die. They saw New as nothing more than target practice. The soldiers spread through the streets. Anyone who ran, they shot. Anyone who fought, they killed slowly. Anyone who begged for mercy received none. They moved through the colony like machines, efficient and emotionless. Teacher tried to hide her students in the classroom. She locked the door and told the children to be quiet. They huddled under desks, crying softly. When they broke down the door, she stood in front of her students with her arms spread wide. "Please," she said, "they're just children." The soldier looked at her for a moment. Then he raised his weapon and fired. Fell. The children screamed. The soldier stepped over her body and continued firing. Across town, his parents pushed him into the basement of their home. "Hide," his father said. "Don't come out no matter what you hear." But, Hyde, his mother kissed his forehead, we love you. They closed the basement door, heard them push furniture over it. Then he heard voices speaking in a strange language. His parents shouted. There were sounds of fighting, then energy weapons fired, then silence. Pressed his hands over his mouth to keep from crying out. He was not alone in the basement. 30 other people had hidden there too. They all stayed silent, barely breathing, as the sounds of death came from above. The attack lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the ships lifted off and disappeared into space. They left behind a burning colony. Smoke filled the air, buildings collapsed, bodies lay in the streets. Of the 15,000 people who had called new home, fewer than 800 survived. They had hidden in basements, in storage facilities, in underground water tanks. They had stayed silent while their neighbors died above them. Governor Lee was among the survivors. She had hidden in a maintenance tunnel beneath her office. When she finally emerged, covered in dust and ash, she walked through streets she no longer recognized. Everywhere she looked, she saw death. She found the emergency transmitter still working, still sending her message into space. Please help, it repeated. Please help, please help. She fell to her knees and wept. 3 days away, Captain sat on the bridge of his ship, the EDF Indomitable. It was a carrier, one of the largest ships in the Earth Defense Force. He was on routine patrol, checking the outer colonies. It was boring work. Nothing ever happened out here. Then the communication officer's head snapped up. Sir, I'm picking up a distress call. It's bad. Listen to the message. Governor Lee's voice, desperate and afraid. The words made his blood run cold. They're killing us, please help. He looked at his executive officer, Commander Park. She met his eyes. They both knew what this meant. The nearest reinforcements were 5 days away. The attack was 3 days old. Everyone on Nu was probably already dead. Set course for Nu, said. Maximum burn, sound battle stations. Sir, said quietly, we should wait for backup. We don't know what we're facing. We know enough. People are dying. We're going. The Indomitable's engines flared to life. The ship turned and accelerated toward Nu. Behind it, 3 escort destroyers followed. It was not a large force, but it was all the help that was coming. Stood and walked to the forward viewport. Somewhere ahead in the darkness, people were suffering. He did not know if they would arrive in time to save anyone, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whoever had attacked Nu was going to pay. The Indomitable raced through space, pushing its engines to the limit. In the crew quarters, soldiers checked their weapons and armor. In the fighter bays, pilots climbed into their cockpits. Everyone knew what they might find when they arrived. Nobody was prepared for what they would actually see. The journey took 3 days. 3 days of not knowing. 3 days of hoping they would not be too late. 3 days of preparing for the worst. They had no idea how much worse it would be. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new system. Captain stood on the bridge, his hands gripped tight behind his back. The main screen showed the planet ahead. Even from this distance, he could see something was wrong. Report, he said. The sensor officer, a young man named, stared at his screen. His face was pale. Sir, I'm detecting debris in orbit, large pieces. It looks like their orbital station was completely destroyed. I'm also reading multiple fires on the surface. Large-scale destruction. Felt his jaw tighten. Any ships? Scanning now. Yes, sir, I have 5 contacts. They're in high orbit, unknown configuration, not human designs. Battle stations, bring us in slow, weapons ready. The Indomitable moved forward. Its 3 escort destroyers spread out in formation. In the fighter bays, pilots strapped into their cockpits and ran through pre-flight checks. The entire ship hummed with tension. Commander Park stood beside. She had pulled up a tactical display. Those ships are big, bigger than our destroyers if they're hostile. They're hostile, said. They wouldn't still be here if they weren't. As they got closer, the main screen showed new and terrible detail. Smoke rose from a dozen locations. Entire sections of the main city were burning. The communication tower was gone. The power station was destroyed. Bodies lay in the streets, visible even from orbit. Felt something cold settle in his stomach. He had seen combat before. He had seen people die. But this was different. This was not a battle. This was a massacre. "Sir," the communication officer said, "we're being hailed. It's coming from one of those ships." "Put it through." The screen changed. A face appeared. It was not human. The creature had scales, yellow eyes, and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It looked at with something like amusement. When it spoke, the translator turned its words into flat, emotionless English. "Human vessel, you have entered territory. Surrender your ship or be destroyed like the colony below." Stared at the creature. He thought of the bodies in the streets, the burning buildings, the desperate distress call. He thought of 15,000 people who had only wanted to farm in peace. "This is captain of the Earth Defense Force ship Indomitable. New is a human colony. You have attacked civilians. You have committed an act of war. Surrender now and prepare to be taken into custody." The commander laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Humans, so weak, so stupid. We killed your people because we could, because you cannot stop us. Now we will kill you too." The screen went dark. "All ships," said quietly, "fire at will. Show them what humans do to murderers." The Indomitable's weapons blazed to life. Energy beams and missiles shot across space toward the ships. The escort destroyers opened fire as well. Fighters launched from the carrier's bays, screaming toward the enemy. The ships returned fire, but they were slow to respond. They had expected the humans to surrender or run. They had not expected this fury. The first ship took a missile hit to its engine section. It exploded in a ball of fire. The second ship tried to turn, but human fighters swarmed it, firing rockets and energy weapons at close range. Its shields failed. Its hull tore open. The battle lasted 20 minutes. When it was over, all 5 ships were destroyed. The Indomitable had taken minor damage. 2 fighters were lost, but they had won. There was no celebration on the bridge. Everyone knew what came next. Commander Park said, "Take a team to the surface, find survivors, find out what happened." "Yes, sir." Assembled a rescue team. 50 soldiers, 10 medics, and support staff loaded into. They descended through the smoke-filled atmosphere toward the main colony. As her approached the landing zone, looked out the window. The city below looked like something from a nightmare. Buildings were collapsed. Streets were cratered. Fire burned everywhere. They landed in what had been a park. Now it was a field of ash. Stepped out of the and felt her boots crunch on something. She looked down and saw she was standing on burned grass, and scattered among the grass were bodies. "Spread out," she ordered. "Look for survivors. Medical teams set up a triage station here." The soldiers moved through the city. What they found was worse than any of them had imagined. They had not just attacked military targets. They had deliberately targeted civilians, schools, hospitals, homes. One soldier found a playground. The swings still moved in the wind. Small bodies lay beneath them. The soldier turned away and vomited. Another team found what had been a hospital. They had executed everyone inside, patients in their beds, doctors trying to treat the wounded, even the injured who could not have possibly fought back. Walked through the streets with her rifle ready, though she knew there were no enemies left to fight. She saw a bakery with its windows shattered. Inside, the owner lay dead behind the counter. Bread was still in the ovens, burned black. She heard her communicator crackle. "Commander, this is Team 3. We've found something, survivors." Ran to the coordinates. Team 3 had found a large storage facility built into the ground. The entrance was hidden beneath rubble. Inside, 32 people huddled in the darkness. They were alive. "It's okay," said, kneeling down. "We're from Earth, we're here to help." The survivors stared at her with hollow eyes. A woman stepped forward. She was covered in dust and dried blood. "Are they gone?" she whispered. "The monsters, are they gone?" "Yes, they're gone. We destroyed them." The woman started crying. Others joined her. Some laughed. Some just stared. They had been hiding in the dark for 3 days, not knowing if help would come, not knowing if they would find them. Over the next 6 hours, rescue teams found more survivors. They came out of basements, underground tunnels, water tanks, anywhere they could hide. Most were injured. All were traumatized. The total count was devastating. Of 15,000 colonists, only 793 survived. More than 14,000 dead. Most killed in the first few hours of the attack. Found Governor Lee in the ruins of the government building. The governor was sitting on a piece of broken concrete, staring at nothing. Her clothes were torn. Her face was blank. Governor Lee said gently. Looked up slowly. "You came. I didn't think anyone would come." "We came as fast as we could. I'm sorry we couldn't get here sooner." "They killed everyone." His voice was flat dead. "They didn't want anything. They didn't ask for anything. They just killed us for no reason. My husband, my children, everyone." Had no words. What could she say? Sorry, it meant nothing. Nothing could fix this. One soldier found a recording device that had survived the attack. It had captured security footage from the city center. Watched it once. Then she sent it to Captain on the Indomitable. He needed to see this. Everyone needed to see this. The footage showed soldiers moving through the streets. It showed them laughing as they shot unarmed people. It showed them executing children who begged for mercy. It showed them setting fire to buildings with families still inside. It was not war, it was sport. They had done this for fun. Watched the footage in his quarters. When it was over, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he called his senior officers to a meeting. "This footage needs to go to Earth Command," he said. "They need to see what we're dealing with. They're not soldiers, they're murderers, and they need to be stopped." "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "if we send this, there will be war." "There's already war," said. "They started it when they killed 14,000 civilians. Now we're going to finish it." In the basement where he had hidden, finally came out after the soldiers found him. He was the last survivor pulled from the ruins. His eyes were red from crying. His voice was hoarse from screaming. A medic tried to comfort him. "You're safe now. The bad people are gone." Looked at her, "My parents." The medic checked her list. She shook her head slowly. Did not cry. He had no tears left. He just nodded and let the medic lead him to the evacuation ship. As he walked through the streets, he saw the bodies. He saw the destruction. He saw what they had done. And he promised himself that one day he would make them pay. The evacuation took 2 days. All 793 survivors were loaded onto the Indomitable and its escort ships. Medical teams worked around the clock to treat the injured. The dead were left behind, too many to move. They would be buried later with honor. Before they left, Captain stood in the city center. Around him, the ruins smoked and burned. He thought about the people who had lived here. Farmers, teachers, children, innocent people who had wanted nothing but peace. He looked up at the sky where the ships had been, where they had died. "This isn't over," he said quietly, "not by a long way." The Indomitable and its convoy turned and jumped to faster-than-light travel, carrying the survivors home. Behind them, New burned. On Earth, the footage from New reached military headquarters. It was classified immediately, shown only to the highest levels of government and military command. But it was too late. Copies had already spread. Within hours, every human colony had seen it. The images of murdered children, the laughing soldiers, the burning city. Humanity had been content to stay in its own corner of space, trading peacefully with alien species, avoiding conflict. But that was before someone had attacked the defenseless. Now everything would change. The footage from New spread across human space like a wildfire. Every colony, every station, every ship saw it. People watched soldiers murder children. They saw families begging for mercy and receiving none. They saw an entire community destroyed for sport. The reaction was instant and universal: rage. On Earth, crowds gathered outside government buildings demanding action. On Mars, volunteers lined up to join the military. On every human colony, people looked at the stars and wondered if they would be next, if monsters could come from space and kill with impunity. The Earth government called an emergency session. Representatives from every human colony attended via hologram. The debate lasted less than an hour. The vote was unanimous. The Empire had committed an act of genocide. Earth's response would be total and without mercy. Find the fleet responsible. Destroy it. Make sure everyone in the galaxy knew what happened when you attacked defenseless humans. Admiral Menu was given command of the Retribution fleet. He was a career officer, 60 years old, with gray hair and cold eyes. He had fought in every major human conflict for the past 30 years. He was known as a brilliant tactician and a man who never forgot a slight. When they told him what his mission was, he simply nodded. How many ships? As many as you need. They gave him 20 capital ships, 50 destroyers, 5 carrier groups, and the newly finished dreadnought Retribution. It was the largest human fleet ever assembled, more firepower than had ever been concentrated in one place. Captain was promoted to Rear Admiral and given command of the vanguard. His ship, the Indomitable, would lead the attack. He accepted the promotion without emotion. He had one job now: make the pay. Commander Park was made his chief tactical officer. She spent her days studying everything they had learned about their technology, their tactics, their psychology. She learned that they valued strength above all else. They despised weakness. They had conquered a dozen species and enslaved or exterminated them all. They think we're weak, she told. They think because we try to be peaceful we can't fight. Then we'll teach them otherwise. The fleet needed a target. They had destroyed the ships at New, but those were just scouts. The main fleet was somewhere else. Finding them was job. She interrogated the one they had captured alive. His ship had been crippled but not destroyed. He was arrogant even in captivity, mocking humans, promising that his people would exterminate Earth. Did not torture him. She did not need to. She simply played the security footage from New. She made him watch as his people murdered children. Then she said, "Tell me where your fleet is and I'll make sure you get a trial. Refuse, and I'll put you in a cell with the survivors you created." They told her everything. The attack fleet had come from a staging area called Station. It was a military fortress deep in space, home to 50,000 soldiers. It was where they trained their forces and planned their conquests. More importantly, it was where they kept records of all their attacks. "They keep trophies," the prisoner said almost proudly. "Recordings of their victories. Your colony was not the first. It will not be the last." Left the cell feeling sick. Not first. How many others? How many species had suffered like New? She brought the intelligence to Admiral. He studied the data for a long time. Then he looked at his officers. "Station will be our target. We destroy it completely. We leave nothing standing. No prisoners. No mercy. Let them understand what it means to face humanity's anger." Some officers looked uncomfortable. This was not how Earth's military usually operated. They had rules, protocols, standards of conduct. Admiral saw their hesitation. "They murdered 14,000 civilians. They did it for sport. They have done it to others and will do it again unless we stop them. This is not murder. This is justice." The fleet began preparation. It would take 2 weeks to assemble everyone and make the jump to space. 2 weeks of drilling, planning, and preparation. Every soldier knew what they were going to do. Everyone understood the stakes. Word of Earth's response reached the Empire. Their military command held an emergency meeting. Some were concerned. Humans had destroyed 5 warships and killed 1,000 soldiers, but most laughed at the threat. "Let them come," the High Commander said. "They are soft, weak. They will break when they see real power." They sent their own fleet to meet the humans. 30 warships, the pride of their navy. They would teach these upstart humans their place. They would destroy the human fleet, and then they would attack Earth itself. The two fleets met at the Taellus Nebula, a region of dense gas and dust that limited sensor range. It was neutral space, unclaimed by either side. It would be the site of the first major battle between humans and Admiral stood on the bridge of the Retribution and watched the enemy ships emerge from the nebula. They were massive, dark vessels bristling with weapons. They moved in a loose formation, confident and aggressive. The commander sent a message. "Humans, you have one chance. Surrender now. Become servants of the Empire, refuse, and we will destroy you like we destroyed your colony." Admiral did not respond with words. He responded with actions. "All ships," he said calmly, "fire." The human fleet opened fire as one. Hundreds of missiles streaked across space. Energy beams lanced out. Fighters launched in waves, swarming toward the enemy. They returned fire, but their formation was wrong. They had expected the humans to cluster together defensively. Instead, the human ships spread out, moving in coordinated patterns, covering each other, focusing fire on single targets. The first ship died within minutes, overwhelmed by concentrated fire. The second tried to retreat but ran into human destroyers that had flanked it. The third managed to damage a human cruiser before it too was destroyed. The commander realized too late that he had made a mistake. These humans were not weak. They were not afraid. They fought with a precision and fury he had never seen. He tried to regroup his fleet, but human fighters were everywhere, hitting weak points, destroying weapon systems, crippling engines. The human capital ships moved like dancers, never staying still, always firing, always pressing the attack. Admiral led the vanguard from the Indomitable. His ship dove into the enemy formation, guns blazing. Fighters from his carrier harassed enemy ships from all sides. He remembered the footage from New. Every shot he fired was for those people. Commander Park coordinated the tactical display. She saw openings in the enemy formation and directed ships to exploit them. She called out targets. She rerouted damaged ships away from danger. She was everywhere at once, a conductor leading a deadly symphony. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, 28 ships were destroyed. The 2 remaining ships tried to run. Admiral gave the order personally. "Pursue, no survivors." Human destroyers chased down the fleeing ships and destroyed them. Every in the battle died. Not one was allowed to escape. The human fleet had lost 6 ships, 400 lives. It was a high cost, but they had sent a message. Admiral broadcast on all frequencies. He showed them the footage from New. He showed them the burning colony, the murdered civilians, the laughing soldiers. Then he showed them the wreckage of their fleet floating in the nebula. "You attacked the defenseless," he said. "Now you face those who can fight back. We are coming for Station. We will destroy it. And we will destroy anyone who attacks human civilians again. This is your only warning." The message reached Station 3 days later. The station commander watched it and laughed. Humans had won one battle. So what? The station had 50,000 soldiers and defensive weapons that could destroy a fleet. "Let them come," he said. "We will crush them." But some of his officers were not so sure. They had seen the footage. They had seen how the human fleet moved, how it fought. One pointed out that the humans had not just won. They had dominated. They had destroyed 30 ships while losing only 6 of their own. "They fight like they have nothing to lose," the officer said. "They don't," another replied. "We took everything from them when we attacked their colony. Now they want revenge." The station commander dismissed their concerns. Revenge does not win battles, strength does, and we are strong. He was wrong. The human fleet arrived at station 1 week later. They did not negotiate. They did not demand surrender. They simply attacked. Station was massive, a fortress built over decades. Its shields could withstand bombardment for days. Its weapons could destroy capital ships. It had defended against attacks before and won. But it had never faced humans before. The human fleet did not attack directly. Instead, they spread out, launching fighters and missiles from all directions. They hit the station with everything they had, overwhelming its defenses through sheer volume of fire. Admiral led boarding teams onto the station. Soldiers in powered armor breached the hull and fought their way inside. The defenders were skilled and brave, but they were facing humans who had seen new, humans who had no mercy left. The fighting inside the station was brutal, room by room, corridor by corridor. The humans advanced relentlessly. They used tactics they had never seen, moving in small teams, supporting each other, never giving the enemy a chance to regroup. The station commander finally understood what he was facing. These were not the soft, peaceful humans his people had expected. These were warriors pushed to the edge. These were people who would burn down the galaxy to protect their own. He tried to negotiate. He offered surrender. He offered alliance. He offered anything. Found him in the command center. The commander stood surrounded by human soldiers, his weapons taken, his confidence gone. "Please," the commander said, "we can talk, we can make a deal." Pulled out a tablet and showed him the footage from New. Did they get to make a deal? Did you give them a chance? The commander said nothing. "You wanted to send a message," said. "You wanted everyone to fear now we're sending one back." He turned to his soldiers. "Complete the evacuation, then destroy this station." They set charges throughout station, every critical system, every structural support. When the charges went off, the station would be completely destroyed. Before they left, Admiral broadcast one final message from the station. It went out on every frequency, to every species in the sector. He showed the footage from New. Then he showed station crumbling. Then he showed the faces of the human soldiers, their eyes hard and cold. This is what happens when you attack the defenseless. Humanity will find you. Humanity will stop you. No matter how far you run, no matter how strong you think you are, touch our civilians and we will show you no mercy. The human fleet. Behind them, station exploded, a new star burning briefly in the darkness of space. 50,000 died. Not one escaped. Across the galaxy, species watched and learned. The humans, those peaceful traders and explorers, had teeth after all, and when provoked, they bit hard. The destruction of station sent shockwaves through the galaxy. News traveled fast in space. Within days, every species knew what had happened. The humans, those peaceful explorers who avoided conflict, had wiped out an entire military fortress. Not a single survived. Some species celebrated quietly. They had been bullies for generations, conquering and enslaving weaker civilizations. Now someone had finally stood up to them. Someone had finally made them pay. Other species were afraid. If humans could do this to what could they do to everyone else? Were humans the new threat, the new empire to fear? The empire convened its high council. The chamber was filled with their military commanders, political leaders, and eldest warriors. They watched the footage of station's destruction over and over. 50,000 soldiers, gone. Their fortress, destroyed. The high commander slammed his fist on the table. "This cannot stand. We must respond with overwhelming force. We must show these humans that we are still the dominant power." But others were not so sure. "They destroyed our station," one general said quietly. "They killed 50,000 of our best soldiers. They did it in less than a day." "They got lucky," the high commander snapped. 3 times they destroyed our scout fleet. They destroyed our battle fleet. They destroyed station. When does luck become skill? The debate raged for hours. Finally, the Empire would respond. They would show the humans that attacking them meant death. They planned their revenge carefully. 3 human mining colonies on the outer rim, small populations, minimal defenses, easy targets. They would hit all 3 simultaneously, kill everyone, and send humanity a clear message: you are not safe anywhere. The attacks came 2 weeks after station's destruction. 3 fleets dropped out of faster-than-light travel and attacked the mining colonies without warning, just like before. But this time they made a mistake. The colonies had been reinforced. After New, Earth had sent defense platforms and ships to every vulnerable colony. When they attacked, they ran into prepared defenses. The battles were fierce but short. They managed to destroy 1 defense platform and damage several ships. They killed 2,000 civilians before the human forces drove them off. The fleets retreated, thinking they had sent their message. They were wrong. On Earth, the government received news of the attacks. The reaction was not fear or hesitation. It was cold, calculated fury. They had learned nothing. They had to be taught a lesson they would never forget. Total mobilization, the Earth president said. Every shipyard, every factory. We build ships until there are no more left to threaten us. The order went out across human space. Shipyards that had been producing civilian vessels switched to military production. Factories that made cargo haulers started making destroyers. Every colony sent volunteers. Every station contributed resources. Humanity was going to war. Not a limited war, not a defensive war, total war. Admiral Menu was given expanded authority. Eliminate every military installation within 50 light-years of human space. Create a buffer zone. Make sure they can never threaten us again. Study the star maps. There were 17 military bases in the designated zone. Outposts, supply depots, shipyards, and training facilities. All would have to be destroyed. This will take months, his chief of staff said. Then we start now. Admiral led the first attacks. His fleet had grown to include 30 ships. He moved from target to target, destroying each installation methodically. He gave them 1 chance to surrender. Most refused. Those bases were destroyed. Those that surrendered were taken prisoner and their facilities demolished. They tried to defend their territory. They sent fleets to intercept the humans. Every time they lost. Human tactics were better. Human technology was better, and human motivation was absolute. Word spread through the military. Fighting humans was different from fighting anyone else. Humans did not stop. They did not negotiate. They came, they fought, they won. Loss after loss mounted. The High Commander finally faced reality. They were losing, badly. The humans were systematically destroying their military power. If this continued, the Empire would be reduced to nothing. We must sue for peace, his advisors said, before they destroy everything. Peace, the High Commander was furious. We do not surrender. Then we die, is that preferable? A coup happened 3 days later. Moderate military officers arrested the High Commander and took control. They knew the Empire was doomed if the war continued. They had to make peace, no matter the cost. They sent a message to Earth. We wish to negotiate an end to hostilities. Earth's response was blunt. No negotiations. Here are our terms, accept them or be destroyed. The terms were harsh. They would withdraw from all territory within 100 light-years of human space. They would pay reparations to the survivors of New and the other attacked colonies. They would hand over all officers involved in the attacks for trial. They would dismantle half their military. They had 48 hours to accept. The new leadership had no choice. They accepted. But Earth was not done. The attacks had killed more than 16,000 human civilians. Someone had to answer for that. Earth demanded the perpetrators face justice. A tribunal was established on a neutral space station. Judges from Earth and several other species presided. The officers responsible for planning and executing the new massacre were brought to trial. The proceedings were broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone watched as the evidence was presented. Security footage, survivor testimony, communications showing they had attacked deliberately, knowing the colony was defenseless. The defense tried to argue they were following orders. The judges were not moved. Following orders does not absolve you of responsibility, the chief judge said. You chose to attack civilians. You chose to murder children. You chose to laugh while doing it. There is no defense for genocide. One by one, the officers were found guilty. The sentences were death, but Earth made one exception. The survivors of Nu would carry out the sentences. It was their right. Governor Lee stood in the execution chamber. Before her stood the officer who had led the ground assault on her colony, the one who had personally ordered the massacre at the school where her children died. She held a weapon, her hands shook. She had never killed anyone before. She was a governor, a civil servant, a mother, but her children were dead. Her husband was dead. Her entire world was dead. The officer looked at her with contempt. You are weak. You will always be weak. Thought of her children's faces. She thought of their last moments, crying for her while monsters killed them. She thought of 14,000 people who had trusted her to keep them safe. She pulled the trigger. The other executions followed. Now 16 years old and serving in the military, was offered the chance to execute one of the soldiers. He accepted. He did not cry. He did not hesitate. He simply did what needed to be done. With the trials complete, Earth turned to rebuilding. Nu was reconstructed, but it was different now. A massive memorial stood in the center of the main city. A wall of names. 14,207 names. Every person killed in the attack. The colony was also heavily defended now. Orbital platforms, ground-based weapons, a permanent military garrison. Nu would never be defenseless again. No human colony would. The buffer zone was complete. Every military installation within 100 light-years of human space was destroyed or captured. The Empire, once powerful and feared, was reduced to a shadow of itself. But Earth did not stop there. They had learned something during the war. The galaxy was full of predators, species that preyed on the weak. They were not unique. They were just the first to attack humans. Earth's government made a decision. From now on, humanity would be the protector. Any species under attack could call for help. Earth would respond. The galaxy needed someone to stand up to bullies. Humanity would be that someone. Admiral was made the commander of the new Protectorate fleet. His mission was simple: patrol the galaxy, respond to distress calls, protect the defenseless. Why? One of his officers asked. Why protect aliens? They're not our people. Thought about Nu, about the helpless colonists who died because no one came to help them in time. Because if we don't, who will? And if no one protects the weak, then the strong will do whatever they want. I've seen what that looks like. I won't let it happen again. The first test came 3 months later. A distress call from a peaceful species of traders and artists. They had been attacked by raiders, slavers taking their people. The nearest human ship was the Indomitable, now under the command of Admiral. He received the call and did not hesitate. All hands, battle stations. We have people to save. They arrived to find ships being boarded by raiders. The raiders were not, but they operated the same way. Attack the weak. Take what you want. Gave them one warning. Release and surrender. You have 60 seconds. The raiders laughed and kept boarding. They thought humans were bluffing. They were wrong. The Indomitable opened fire. Human fighters swarmed the raider ships. The battle was over in minutes. Every raider ship was destroyed. Every captive was freed. The captain, a being covered in blue fur with large eyes, approached after the rescue. Why did you help us? We cannot pay you. We have nothing you need. You needed help, said simply, that's enough. Word spread. Humans would respond to distress calls. Humans would fight to protect others. Species that had been victims for generations suddenly had hope. More calls came. A farming colony under pirate attack. A research station threatened by an aggressive neighbor. A refugee ship fleeing persecution. Every time, human ships responded. Every time they drove off the aggressors. Some species tried to test humanity's resolve. They attacked colonies, thinking humans would not travel far to help strangers. They were wrong. Human ships appeared, fought, and won. The message became clear: attack the defenseless anywhere and humanity responds. The galaxy changed. Piracy decreased. Raids on weak colonies stopped. Aggressive empires thought twice before attacking their neighbors, because everyone knew that if they did, humans would come. And humans, once provoked, showed no mercy. On New, the colony thrived again. The population grew as new colonists arrived. They came knowing the history, knowing what had happened. But they also knew they were safe now. Earth would not let it happen again. Stood at the memorial wall, now a young officer in the Protectorate fleet. He touched his parents' names carved in stone. I'm shipping out tomorrow, he said quietly. First assignment, I'll make you proud. The wind blew across the memorial. 14,000 names, a reminder of what had been lost, and a promise of what would be protected. Somewhere in space, a distress call went out, and somewhere a human ship changed course to respond, because that was what humans did now. They protected the defenseless, without mercy for those who preyed on the weak, without hesitation for those who needed help. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity had found its purpose. 5 years after the New massacre, the galaxy was a different place. The war with the had reshaped everything. Humanity had gone from peaceful explorers to the sector's primary military power. The change had been swift, brutal, and absolute. Admiral Menu stood on the observation deck of his flagship, the EDF Guardian. Through the viewport, he could see a dozen ships from the Protectorate fleet conducting exercises. Destroyers, carriers, cruisers, all human, all powerful, all ready. His second-in-command, Captain Boranam, joined him at the window. She was young, only 35, but she had fought in the war from the beginning. She had been at Noose Rescue. She had seen things that still haunted her dreams. "Sir, we have another request for assistance," she said. "They are reporting raids on their outer colonies. They're asking if we can send ships." Nodded. "Deploy the 4th Fleet. Tell Admiral to handle it personally." "Yes, sir." They were a species of peaceful farmers, much like humans had been before New. Their colonies were spread across a dozen systems, all vulnerable to raiders and pirates. Before the war, they had simply accepted the losses. It was the way of the galaxy. The strong took from the weak. Not anymore. Admiral received his orders and smiled grimly. He was 50 now, with gray starting to show in his hair. The years of war had aged him, but they had also refined him. He knew exactly what needed to be done. His fleet jumped to the system and found the raiders in the middle of an attack. They were a mix of species, criminals who preyed on isolated colonies. They saw the human ships arrive and immediately tried to flee. "Negative," said calmly. "Weapons free, no survivors." The human ships moved with practiced efficiency. Fighters launched, missiles locked on, energy weapons powered up. Within 20 minutes, every raider ship was destroyed. Not one escaped. The colonists watched in amazement. Help had come. Real help. Not promises or empty words, but ships and soldiers who actually fought for them. The governor met with afterward. "How can we repay you?" "You can't," said. "We don't do this for payment. We do it because it's right." But not everyone was happy with humanity's new role. Some species viewed Earth's military power with suspicion. The Collective, a powerful empire in the neighboring sector, sent a formal complaint to Earth. "Your interference in regional affairs is unacceptable. their ambassador stated. "You have no authority to police the galaxy." Earth's response was delivered by the President herself in a public broadcast. "We are not policing the galaxy. We are protecting those who cannot protect themselves. If that bothers you, perhaps you should ask why. Are you worried we will interfere with your own plans to prey on the weak?" The ambassador had no good answer to that. Life on Nu had returned to something resembling normal. The colony now had 30,000 residents, double its pre-war population. New buildings stood where the old ones had burned. New farms spread across the valleys. Children played in the parks. But the memorial remained. Every day people visited the Wall of Names. 14,207 victims. No one forgot. The past was always present. Governor Lee, now in her 60s, still led the colony. She had rebuilt her life, though she never had more children. How could she, when her first family lay dead in the ground? She walked through the city every morning, greeting people, checking on projects, ensuring the colony thrived. She smiled at children, helped elders, listened to concerns. But at night, alone in her quarters, she still cried. Some wounds never healed. Now 21, served aboard the Indomitable as a lieutenant. He had risen quickly through the ranks, driven by a need to prove himself, to honor his parents' memory. He was good at his job, methodical, precise, emotionless in combat. Too emotionless, his commanding officer sometimes worried. But then again, most veterans of the war were like that. They had seen too much, lost too much. They functioned well, but something inside them was broken. The Empire struggled in the aftermath of the war. They had lost half their military, been forced to pay crushing reparations, and withdrawn from dozens of systems. Their economy collapsed. Their government fractured. Some wanted revenge. They formed resistance cells, conducted terrorist attacks against human targets. But Earth's response was always the same, swift and total. Every attack was traced back to its source. Every cell was eliminated. Others accepted the new reality. They worked to rebuild their society, to change their culture of aggression. It was slow work. Generations of teaching that the strong should dominate the weak were not erased easily. Young who had never known war started asking questions. Why had their leaders attacked Nu? What had they hoped to gain? Was it worth 50,000 dead soldiers and the destruction of their empire? The old had no good answers. One scholar, a female named, began studying human culture. She wanted to understand how a peaceful species had become such effective warriors. What she found surprised her. "Humans don't glorify war," she wrote in her paper. "They hate it, but they have something we never developed, protective instinct for the defenseless. They will endure any cost to protect their own and those they see as victims. This is not weakness. It is the most dangerous kind of strength." Her paper was controversial among her people. Some called it propaganda. Others read it and wondered if she was right. Maybe the old ways were wrong. Maybe strength was not just about dominating others. Meanwhile, humanity continued building its defense network. Every colony received protection. Every station had ships nearby. The days of defenseless settlements were over. But the expansion came at a cost. The military budget consumed enormous resources. Ships and soldiers had to be maintained. Bases had to be supplied. Some Earth politicians began questioning the policy. "Why are we protecting aliens?" they asked. "Why should human taxes pay for other species' defense?" The debate raged in Earth's Congress. Finally, they held a vote. Should humanity continue its role as galactic protector, or should it withdraw to defend only human space? The survivors of Nu were invited to testify. Governor Lee stood before the Congress and spoke quietly. "We called for help. For 3 days we wondered if anyone would come, if anyone cared that we were dying. Captain came. He saved 800 of us. If he had arrived 1 day earlier, maybe more would have lived. If he had not come at all, we would all be dead." She looked at the congressmen. Now other species send the same desperate calls we sent. They wonder if anyone will help. If we ignore them because they're not human, what does that make us? Are we really any better than the? The vote was not even close. Humanity would continue its protection of the defenseless. It was who they were now, who they had to be. Years passed. The Protectorate fleet grew. More species joined what became known as the Defensive Alliance. They contributed ships and resources, but Earth remained the primary military power. Incidents still occurred. Raiders still attacked. Aggressive empires still tested boundaries. But every time, human ships responded. And every time, the aggressors learned the same lesson. Attacking the defenseless brought swift retaliation. A new generation grew up knowing this reality. Young humans joined the military not for glory or conquest, but to protect others. The culture shifted. Humanity defined itself not by what it conquered, but by what it defended. Admiral eventually retired. He had served for 30 years, fought in 100 battles, saved countless lives. At his retirement ceremony, he stood before a crowd of officers and gave a short speech. "I was not a good man when I started," he said. "I followed orders, I did my duty, but I did not truly understand what that meant until new. Standing in those ruins, seeing what happened when no one came to help, I learned what our purpose really was. Not to fight wars, not to build empires, but to make sure that when someone calls for help, someone answers." He looked at the young officers. "That is your duty now. Answer the call, every time, no matter how far, no matter the cost, because somewhere someone is depending on you to come." The audience stood and applauded. Many cried. They all understood. On New, the colony celebrated its 25th anniversary of Reconstruction. 50,000 people lived there now. The farms were productive. The schools were full. Life had returned. The memorial ceremony was held as it was every year. People gathered at the wall of names. They read the names aloud, every single one. It took hours, but no one complained. No one left early. These names were sacred. These people had to be remembered. Now a commander himself stood at attention during the reading. His parents' names were read. He did not cry. He had no tears left, but he remembered. He always remembered. After the ceremony, a young girl approached him. She was 8 years old, born after the massacre. She did not remember the attack, but she knew the stories. "Commander," she said shyly, "my teacher says you survived, that you were there." Nodded. "What was it like?" He thought about how to answer. How do you explain to a child what it was like to hide in a basement while your parents died above you? How do you describe the silence after the screaming stopped? "It was dark," he said finally, "and I was scared, but I knew someone would come. I had to believe that, and someone did come. The ships came and they saved us. That's why I joined the military, so I can be the one who comes when others are scared and hiding in the dark." The girl nodded solemnly. "I want to do that too, when I grow up." "Then study hard, train hard, and remember why we do this. To protect people. To protect everyone." Far across the galaxy, a distress call went out. A small colony of artists and musicians, a species called the, was under attack by slavers. They had no weapons, no military. They only had their art and their hope. The nearest human ship was the Indomitable, now under the command of Captain Song, one of his former students. He received the distress call and immediately changed course. "All hands to battle stations," he ordered. "We have a distress call, time to earn our pay." His crew moved with practiced efficiency. They had done this dozens of times: respond to the call, save the innocents, stop the aggressors. It was what they did, what humanity did. The Indomitable jumped to faster-than-light speed, racing toward the colony. In the crew quarters, young soldiers checked their weapons and armor. In the fighter bays, pilots ran pre-flight checks. On the bridge, officers plotted tactical solutions. They all knew their jobs. They all knew why they were doing this. because once a colony called New had called for help, and though help came too late for most, it did come. That changed everything. Now, when anyone in the galaxy called for help, humanity answered, without hesitation, without mercy for those who preyed on the weak, with absolute dedication to protecting the defenseless. It was humanity's purpose, born from tragedy, forged in war, maintained through vigilance. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Attack the defenseless and humanity would find you. It did not matter how far you ran. It did not matter how powerful you thought you were. Humanity would come, and humanity would make you pay. This was not boasting. It was not a threat. It was simply truth, a fact of the universe as real as gravity. The Indomitable dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. Ahead, they could see the slaver ships attacking the colony. Captain Song gave the order calmly, as if ordering coffee. Weapons free, protect the colony, no survivors among the slavers. The ship surged forward, weapons charged, fighters launched. Once again, humanity went to war, not for conquest, not for glory, but to protect those who could not protect themselves. Because that was what humans did now. That was who they had become, and nothing in the galaxy would change that. In the memorial garden on New, the wind rustled through the trees planted in honor of the dead. 14,207 names carved in stone, a reminder of what was lost, and a promise of what would be protected. Forever,